issues and major problems. But we're not supposed to think about it that way or know it because, it's one of the most liberal cities in the Union. It's by far. Now, it's not run by liberal blacks right now, but it's still run by liberals. But speaking of blacks, the sfgate.com, here's a story from a very liberal city. African Americans cited for resisting arrest at a high rate in San Francisco. Now, you're probably thinking, well, that's no big deal. Well, here's the problem. African Americans accounted for 45% of the over 9,600 resisting arrest cases in San Francisco. Now, they only make up just 6% of the population. Now, you can't always say that that the population has anything to do with it, because maybe people are coming from outside the city that don't live in the city, but I don't know where else they would be coming from, because all around San Francisco is probably more, except for maybe Oakland, is probably more expensive to live than in San Francisco proper. Ever been to Sausalito? I know I'm getting off track a little bit here, but I'm just reminiscing about my trips, plural, to the San Francisco area. Sausalito's it's across the bay, just a trip across the bridge, the Golden Gate Bridge from San Francisco. Absolutely gorgeous. Absolutely extremely expensive to live. So, and I'm not saying that African Americans can't afford, $1 million homes, but let's face it, there is not a large population of them. Not yet. No, we were working on it under Reagan. And to some extent, we were working on it in the 90s, but not so much under Obama. I think blacks have lost a lot of economic ground under Obama, especially if they're in inner cities like Baltimore or Ferguson, where their businesses get torched. So these people are not living in, surrounding areas, towns and cities, because they're just too darn expensive. I mean, when you're looking at, I think there was like a 1,200 square foot house or something. It was a small 3-bedroom, 1.5 bath in Sausalito that went for like $1.3 or $1.5 million. That's what it sold for. It was a redonkulous. I mean, it had no property. It was right on the major roadway that leads into downtown Sausalito, and the tour buses went by there. Tour buses went right by this house. And the house didn't have any, and then there was a cliff on one side, and the main road in the front. Not a lot of property, so maybe people might think, well, maybe it had some property. Well, it had a decent bay view, but that's about it. I guess you're paying for the view of the bay from that point. But and this is, let me tell you something. This is the other point. If you're earning minimum wage. Do you think earning $15 an hour is going to help you afford to either rent or buy that $1.3 million house? I don't think $15 an hour is going to do it. Just saying. But then again, I didn't notice, McDonald's in Sausalito, and I'm sure that at most of the stores in the business district in Sausalito, they were making more than the minimum wage. But again, well, especially for the kind of shops that were there. But, if $15 an hour is not going to get you much in Sausalito, it might get you a broom closet if you're lucky. So that's another vote against, or a reason why I'm not for a government-mandated minimum wage. But this notion that San Francisco is supposed to be, all-inclusive and fair. African Americans in San Francisco are cited for resisting arrest at a rate 8 times greater than whites, even when serious crimes are not involved, according to statistics drawn from court records. Now, from January 2010 to April 24th of this year, law enforcement officers cited suspects of the resisting arrest 9,633 times in cases where the suspect was not charged with a felony. African Americans accounted for 45% of those cited, even though they make up just 6% of the city's populations. Now, the stats are drawn from San Francisco's case management system, which tracks court cases in the city. They include arrests made by all law enforcement agencies that operate in San Francisco, including the police and sheriff's departments. Now, Supervisor Malia Cohen, whose Bayview district has a largely African American population, said the numbers, if true, substantiate and quantify what we often hear from residents and are a glaring indicator that police in similar situations act more aggressively towards minority residents than they do with white residents, warranted or not. Now, this whole notion that the cops might be picking on blacks, well, that might be true. Now, this is coming from a guy who fully supports police. Look, they're profiling. And but the problem is that there is this resisting arrest thing. I'm not a huge fan of that. And I think that's a law that we should drop nationwide. I'm going to be honest about it. I think it's a law that we should drop nationwide. But you're probably saying, well, Rod, you can't resist authority. Well, the problem is that authority can just, if they ask you a question and you decide, well, you don't have to answer the question, which you don't, that now they're going to arrest you for resisting arrest. There's no other crime committed. There is no other crime that you could have possibly committed or be proven to have committed or be suspected of committing. Yet now there is a crime, which is actually, resisting arrest is actually very serious. And that goes in your record. I think it's a law that needs to be not changed, dropped. It needs to be dropped because the abuse, whether it's intended or not, is well documented. It's a bad law. Now, I do not fault the cops for using it. They shouldn't be able to use it. Then they wouldn't have this problem. You see what I'm saying? If you get rid of the bad laws that the cops are charged with enforcing, then you don't have a problem. You don't have a problem with those laws or incidences. Plain and simple. And no, I'm not talking about drugs. I know some people are out there saying, wow, yeah, see, Rod, that's why we need to get rid of the drug war. No. There are limits. Now, yeah, I agree. We probably should not be arresting as many people who just use an illicit product and don't distribute. We probably arrest way too many of those people and incarcerate way too many of those people. I agree. It does not mean we should legalize all the illicit drugs. Probably pot, because of the history behind marijuana. I know the history behind marijuana, why and how it became illegal, and I think that's wrong, but that's for another discussion. But when you give certain authority, and it's not just the police department, because obviously the story is about all of those involved in policing activity in San Francisco, which includes the sheriff's department, which includes the state police, which includes any federal agencies that may have instituted some arrests within the city of San Francisco. They all have this power. You know, anyone with a badge, basically, a badge and a gun, can arrest you for resisting arrest. You get my point? I mean, you could be a park ranger, for crying out loud. You could be a postal inspector. You know, I think there's 700 of them nationwide that have a badge and a gun. Yeah, they can arrest you for resisting. Any of them. It's just a bad law. Plain and simple. I believe it to be a very bad law. I know why it was instituted, because there are a lot of people who weren't giving the police and others in authority the respect that they demanded in when it came to arrestable powers. But let's face it, just because somebody else was doing something wrong does not mean you go and create a bad law, so now it's easier for somebody else to do something wrong. That's not how two wrongs don't make a right. Now, if somebody is legally under, because cops can take you in for, for being suspected of just about anything. If they suspect you of a crime, they can detain you. They don't need to make up one. Seriously. They have the power if they honestly and truly and legally suspect you of possibly breaking a law. They can detain you until they get it cleared up, one way or the other. That's what they can. And you know what? That actually takes real police work to do that. Some of the laws that we've given our law enforcement agencies from local to federal levels really allows them to be a little bit lazy. They don't have to do much. And that's not, if we want government to be as efficient as possible, so we don't want them to be lazy at all. And I know there's probably a bunch of you listeners out there that just do not agree with me on this, but I'm telling you the truth. The statistics nationwide do not bear false witness to me. There are way too many instances. I mean, 9,600 cases of resisting arrest. And you know how easy it is to be charged with resisting arrest. If an officer just grabs you by the shoulder and you say, "Let go of me," you can be charged with resisting arrest. No reason at all. You're not accused of this is 9,600 times where people are not even charged with a crime. You don't have to be charged with anything else. You understand? Nothing, and many times people who are charged with resisting arrest are charged with nothing else. They're brought in on no other charge. So it's not that they get to the station and then the charges are dropped. They're not charged at all with any other crime. That's why I say it's a bad law. Because resisting arrest is a serious crime. And it doesn't matter what the color of your skin is. Yeah, in some communities, blacks may be targeted more than other ethnic groups, and in some communities, Latinos may be targeted more than other ethnic groups, and then there are in some communities where there really aren't any other ethnic groups, so it's nothing but whites that get targeted. So it's an equal opportunity bad law. It doesn't take, it's not based on any racial profiling when you're looking at national statistics. If you live in a community where there are no blacks, or Latinos, then there's no racial profiling there. There might be other kinds of profiling, but you can't blame everything on race all the time. I'm just saying you really can't. Sometimes it is true, but it's hard when everybody's crying wolf. It's hard to really determine when there really is a wolf in the hen house. That's something we've got to stop doing. We've got to stop crying wolf when there is no wolf. Because when you do that, just like in the story, when there really is a wolf, nobody's going to believe you. So when we get to the point where we actually say, there looks like there's a problem over in San Francisco with this, nobody's going to really believe it. Because, man, you said this over in Ferguson, you said this over in Baltimore, you said this over in this city, and maybe there really is a problem in San Francisco. I don't know. But nobody's going to believe it because of all the other false wolves around the nation. If you're going to want people to take you seriously, I don't care what it is, then you've got to, you can't put forth false information. You can't lie about something. You have to be honest about it. And then if you make a mistake, you have to own up to the mistake. Like in Ferguson or Baltimore. You know what? We made a mistake. We didn't mean for this to happen. We didn't want for this to happen, but it did. And we're going to take steps so it doesn't happen again. The mayor. I said we were giving them room to destroy, but that's not what I meant. I made a mistake when I spoke. What I really meant to say was, but no. They want to continue and voice this idea that there's a wolf in the hen house when there is no wolf in the hen house. So when sometime there really is a wolf in the hen house, nobody is going to believe them. So, you got to ask, well, I don't know how else, you can say it, but Yeah, it is what it is, folks. We'll be right back.